I would say if God has called you to a church, to a man, to a woman in that church, then go all in for whatever that is and stop looking for what's next. Just go all in 100% on whatever God has called you to do. Get planted, get rooted in that church. And just like the story of the prophet in 1 Kings, if God changes his assignment, it will be very, very clear. He will tell you that your assignment has changed.
This is the Leading Second podcast, where we're on a mission to equip local churches everywhere to raise uncommon leaders. The Leading Second podcast releases every Thursday morning, so hit follow and share this episode with your team. Now let's jump into another episode for all of us who lead from the middle. From the second chair, for the second chair. Hey, welcome to the Leading Second podcast. My name is Clark, and I'm one of the team members here at Leading Second. So glad you've joined us, and we've got another great episode in store for you today. And if you want to get the most out of today's episode, I'd encourage you download our episode guide. It's a resource we've made for you to help maximize the content in this episode. You can use it to jumpstart conversations with your team, or you can just use it for your own personal growth. You can find it at our website, leadingsecond.com/podcast. Before we jump into the episode, I want to remind you that today is the last day for super early bird pricing for Leading Second Camp 2023 registration, if you're listening to this on release day, that is. So if you want to get the lowest price possible, today's the last day. Get you and your team registered. We'd love to see you there. This is your invite to our gathering that we do annually as the Leading Second Tribe, and we'd love to see you there. It would be just an honor to be part of this event with you, where you're going to get renewed and realigned and equipped for your ministry role wherever you're serving in church life. You're going to be surrounded by people who are doing ministry just like you. I'll be there, and I want to see you there as well. So today, if you're listening to this on release day, this is the last day to get that super early bird pricing. You can go to our website, leadingsecondcamp.com, to register for the dates, for more information. Go there and get yourself hooked up. Do yourself a favor. For today's interview, we're honored to welcome leaders from NorthRock Church. Brandon sits down with them to talk with them about why did they stay. Let's jump into this conversation.
Well, hey, I'm excited about this conversation today. Today, you're going to get to hear from an incredible church that's very special to the Leading Second Tribe. So I want y'all to welcome to the podcast today the team from NorthRock Church in San Antonio, Texas. Say what's up to everybody, y'all.
What's up?
What's up, everybody, y'all?
Hey.
I have adopted y'all into my Pacific Northwest language, by the way. There is no English word for the word you guys. So I've decided it sounds better than yous guys, or, it's just nice.
Yeah.
I think it's nice too, and
I do
appropriate.
So
It's
I'm an
better.
honorary Texan for today. So welcome y'all to the podcast. Pastor Jonathan Moore is the lead pastor of NorthRock Church. I'm so glad today to have you here today, sir. Why don't you, I guess, maybe tell us a little bit about you and your family.
Oh, well, Brandon, I'm pumped to be here with you, and love your ministry and all that you're doing for the kingdom of God, and 100% behind everything that you are doing. Love this ministry. Love Leading Second. Love the whole concept. I think it's a much, much needed ministry, and a niche that has been missing for a long time, specifically in the church. So thank you for doing this. My wife, Alicia, and I have been married a long time, 29 years to be exact.
Come on, somebody.
Yep. We have two boys, son Mason, who's 22, and a 19-year-old named Britton. And both are in college. Mason will graduate this December. He's working on his last semester right now. In fact, he's just got a few more weeks. and Britt is just getting started. So he is a freshman, and he's also
That's
playing
awesome.
baseball in college. So keeping us busy, and yeah, that's it for us.
You're one of the churches I feel like our ministry has kind of grown up with. You were one of the first crazy pastors to invite me to come and serve at your church 11 years ago when I was like crazy enough to think we could do something, but had absolutely zero experience. I don't know what I told you or not, but I had zero experience at the time.
Oh, you acted like you'd been.
Oh yeah.
You were seasoned.
That's how we do it.
23 or whatever you were. I don't even know.
Thank you for the compliment of the age, by the way. But your church was portable at the time, and one location meeting in a high school up there north side of San Antonio. I just love what God has done over the last decade in your church. That I've known you anyways. I love the growth, your multiple locations now, really healthy church and team, and y'all are partners for Leading Second. So just wanted to say today, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while because I feel like y'all are OG, a part of the Leading Second tribe, whether you wanted to be or not. You're in this thing with us from the beginning. So glad you're here. And I'm also excited to welcome Matt and Jennifer Martin to the podcast. Say what's up to everybody, Matt and Jen.
Hey, everyone. Again, Brandon, thank you so much. We love Leading Second dearly, obviously heavily involved with what's happening. And Jennifer and I have been married 26 years. And so we started really, really young. And it's been a fun journey. Two amazing boys, Blake, who is 24 and got married this year. So now I have to get used to using the phrase daughter-in-law, which is awesome. She's amazing. It just makes me feel old. And,
it's daughter-in-love, Matt. It's
daughter-in-love. There we go. Daughter-in-love. And so he's living his best life and working in ministry at Church of the Highlands in Birmingham. And our youngest is 16, just got his license a few months ago. Wow. And it's almost like empty nesters. And he loves Jesus and the church. So super proud of our boys. And
that's awesome.
Jennifer and I have been on this journey since day one with Pastor Jonathan and Alicia at NorthRock. So
that's awesome. Jennifer, tell us a little bit about your roles at the church.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. So great to be with you today. Thank you so much, Brandon, for the opportunity. Like Matt said, we've been married a minute, and we've been on this journey with Pastors Jonathan and Alicia since the beginning. And our roles have morphed as we've went.
Sure,
and when you plant a church, you start out doing it all, and we all did it all. But now the seats that we're sitting in is Matt is sitting in executive pastor of operations seat, and I am sitting in executive pastor of programming seat. And so we have kind of been a little bit of everything, but now we're a little more defined in what we do, which has been super rewarding. And it's been an honor to serve. So.
Well, hey, both of you are brilliant leaders. You're brilliant coaches. In fact, you're a part of our coaching groups team with Leading Second. I call you all the time to bounce weird message ideas off of you or coaching thoughts off of you. You're part of the secret sauce of this ministry. So I'm so glad that you're on our team and involved. Yes. And hey, if you have a married kid, that means you could be grandpa any day, Matt.
Well, this was going well. This was going well until you started that. Yikes. Yeah, even worse, Jennifer could be a grandma. So let's just
I went for you. I went for you.
Let's put the pressure over there. So
Mimi, no.
Mimi.
We will need to edit this part out.
Anytime I call on you today, I'm calling you Mima.
I'm getting off.
Okay, here we go. Let's actually do something meaningful here. Pastor Jonathan, tell us about planting NorthRock. Let's just start there. You have a beautiful church, an amazing church, and we're going to get to kind of some second chair dynamics in a second. But tell us just about the church. What was it like planting this church all those years ago now?
Well, it was hard, and we didn't have the resources a lot of people have nowadays. So honestly, thank God for church planning organizations like ARC and others that help resource people and prepare them for what they're going to deal with.
Wow.
Because we didn't have that. I didn't even know things like ARC existed. So we just felt like God directed us to move down here and to plant this location, plant this church. And we used a book, like a Nielsen Searcy book called Starting a Church from Scratch or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
And we literally just went through that book and marked it up. I found it about a year ago, and it was just dumbfounded that was what we used to plant the church. And had no idea what we were doing, didn't know how to do really anything but have decent church. And so it was quite a challenge. Our product was funny and unique. We started in an elementary school cafetorium, which is a sexy word for a elementary school cafeteria.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
has a stage on the side of it. So cafetorium, it sounds better than it actually is. It smelled of children and food. And we had church there every weekend. That's where we got our start. And, God blessed us. And we spent 2.5 years there. We learned a lot as we went. And then we moved into a high school here close by. And we spent 2 years in that high school. And somewhere in that third or fourth year that we realized, okay, we only really know how to have church. We don't really know how to get people connected. And we hit a wall in our growth. And so really that is when we connected to the Grow Network and got some resources that actually helped us. And, we started doing that whole model with Growth Track and all that business. And it really helped us get some traction and some growth. And man, those early years, of course, a lot of those weekends we would just go home and go to bed and say, all right, we're just going to get up tomorrow and try again, because it was not good this weekend, but I know we can do better next weekend. So much of it was just perseverance and just grit and just not being willing to quit, because church planners, if you have quit in you, there will be a time, and probably multiple times, where you will quit.
Right.
So we just didn't have quit in us. And thank God for people like Matt and Jennifer who were on the journey with us the entire time.
Beautiful.
God was working in their life. During the same time he was transitioning Alicia and I here to San Antonio, he was transitioning them. And Matt made the mistake of calling and just to talk, and actually was probably looking for a job at the church that I was at in Austin.
Yes, I was.
I said, well, but I've got a much better opportunity for you. And so they bit and moved here with us. Nobody knew what we were in for.
Wow.
But they actually were on location in San Antonio before I was. I think they moved here in about April or maybe May. And Alicia and I didn't actually get moved here till about mid-July. So they were here even before us. And,
that's amazing.
We've been on this ride together.
I firmly believe that God assigns second chair leaders to pastors. I believe that God calls men and women who are pastors to a city, but he often calls many of us to a pastor. And I think I feel assigned to my lead pastors the same way, Matt and Jennifer, that I think you feel toward your pastors. I guess I'll lob this question at you. Why in the world is this your church? Bleed your heart for a minute. Why do you love this church, and why are you aligned with your pastors?
So many reasons. So I'll just keep it short. One of the things is that we feel strongly that God called us. And we did make a call to Pastor Jonathan, Matt did, and we were thinking something else, but God had other plans for us. And to be quite honest, we never saw ourselves as church planters. That was not something I ever thought that I would want to be a part of. And the very first time that I ever was around Pastor Jonathan and Pastor Alicia with this idea in mind. I had been around them a little bit. We were acquaintances. We weren't good friends. They weren't on our Christmas card list, and we weren't on theirs. But we were acquaintances. And so we came to San Antonio, and they came to San Antonio. They were living in Austin at the time. And he just drove us around the city. And from that day, and then every day since that this man talks about the city of San Antonio, He is extremely passionate, and he will get very, very weepy. I was in a room with him Monday night, and he started talking about the city of San Antonio and the people
Wow.
who live here, and he started weeping. And
Wow.
I knew in that moment that God was calling us to him, one, because of his passion. I knew I wanted to work for somebody who was extremely passionate about
Beautiful.
what God had called them to do. He didn't pull me over on the side of the road and have me weep for San Antonio. And he didn't wake me up in the middle of the night and say, San Antonio is where you're going. But he assigned us to Pastors Jonathan and Alicia. And because of their vision, I said, I can align myself with that.
Wow.
And it was, it was very obvious that this was what we were supposed to do. It was very, very obvious. But there were a lot of people in our life at the time who it was not obvious to them. And there's a story in the Bible in 1 Kings 13, and it's about a prophet, and he's got to go deal with King Jeroboam. And the Lord tells him, don't eat, don't drink, and don't go home the same way that you go. And he goes and he takes care of what he needs to take care of, and he's headed home. And another prophet hears about this and intersects him. And the prophet lies to him and tells him, God sent me to bring you to my house to eat. And so he goes to his house and eats, even though God did not tell him, I've changed my mind, and now I have a different assignment for you. And through this process, there was one day we were still in San Antonio. We hadn't moved yet. There was a knock on our door, and I opened the door, and there was someone I loved dearly and I trusted on the other side. And she said, God told me you don't have to move. And I said, I don't receive that. I don't receive that.
Whoa.
And she came back a few weeks later and she said, I'm sorry, I was out of line. And it was just a reminder that there are people, lots of times people drop that all the time, like God told me,
Wow.
or God said, or God. But God gave us an assignment, and we were sure of our assignment. And even though there were voices that we loved that were telling us something different, we knew what God had told us. And God has not changed his mind. We are still assigned to Pastor Jonathan and Alicia, and we are very sure of that. So
that's beautifully said, number one. And you guys have such a great heart for your pastors. And NorthRock is a special church, strong, robust leadership culture to it, really preparing the way for the future. I love so much about your house, and thank you for expressing, I guess, some of that early sentiment. But I want to get to maybe the main question I came to ask you guys today. And I'm going to throw this one to Matt to get the party started. And that is simply this question. It's kind of funny, but why haven't you left over the years? And let me give context to the question. It's unusual, honestly. It's unusual for people to stay in churches, number one, for multiple decades, let alone on staff. I know that I'm the guy that goes around the country saying I've been in the same church for 40 years or something. I understand that's an anomaly. I understand that's not everyone's story. And yet I think that longevity is one of the greatest things that I respect about leaders, because you can't buy it. You can't shortcut it. You quite simply have to earn it. You just got to stick it out, to get there. So I love, and I'm fascinated by leaders who go the distance. So help us for a minute here. Like, what has kept you here, Matt? You and Jennifer, has kept you here as a part of this house?
Well, I'll tell you the first part of this is it's not like I've never not thought about leaving, because there's been opportunities. Sure. There's been days where I'm like, this is just too hard. This is it. What are we doing? Especially those early years, as Pastor Jonathan and Jennifer were talking about. I mean, there were some days, and God was so gracious. I would call Pastor Jonathan, it'd be a Sunday afternoon or a Monday, and he would just be encouraging. Hey, bud, we're going to get up and do it again next week. But then the next week he would call me. He's like, that may be the end of it. And I'm like, nope, we're going to try one more time. We're going to try one more week and see what happens. But So it's not that it was, it was all roses. There were multiple opportunities. I had two different people call me and just basically open a checkbook up and say, you name your price and you can come here. And I would blow them off. And one guy called me back and said, no, seriously, I want you to pray about this. And I placated him and I did pray about it, but there was nothing to pray about. I knew what the assignment was. I knew where I was supposed to be. But when I think about why I stayed, there's a couple of things that come to mind. It's already been touched on a little bit, but my pastors are passionate about what we are doing. We don't talk about exit strategies. Now we're at an age, we've grown older. We talk about retirement strategies, but we don't talk about exit strategies. That's just not in our language. It really never has been. We kind of laugh about we encouraged each other. It got rough, but we never had a moment where we sat down and said, okay, if we shut it down in 6 weeks, what is this? We just never had that conversation. We just wouldn't. We just wouldn't have it. I think another reason that, and Pastor Jonathan will speak to this as well, but I think one of the reasons that I've stayed is, simply put, I have a lane to run in. I'm empowered to press the gas as hard as I can. I have guardrails, but I don't have a speed limit. And so I know I know the direction, I know the vision, and I bump a guardrail every now and then. And over the last 14 years, I've bumped a lot of them. Some of them I've hit pretty hard, and we've had to sit down and talk through it and figure it out. But I've never been told, hey, you need to slow down because you're just going too fast. You need to just stop out of that lane because no, the empowerment has been there. And I just love that I've been able to run and run hard. And so that is so well said. I want to come back to you in just a second, but I want to just emphasize this for any leader that's listening right now, because I've said it a little bit differently about our context here with my pastors, Kevin and Sheila Gerald, but I've always said, anytime I went to jump, I never hit my head on a ceiling they created, and of course within the guardrails, you said it great. But it's just like, and I think that leaders need to hear that. I think that pastors need to hear that if you want to have and keep, God honoring, kingdom centered, but leaders with some godly ambition to them, you need to create high ceilings. And I am so thankful to this day. I've had many problems. My pastors ain't been one of them. I have never hit the ceiling there, but we've had to, I guess, step into that. So anything else you want to say on that? I wanted to emphasize that because I thought that was so well said, Matt. And a couple of things, one of the things I also love is, and this has been from day one, I'm allowed to ask permission, which is important. I'm allowed to ask permission, but I'm also allowed to ask forgiveness. And I have the same confidence on both when I walk into the room.
Wow.
And that's big. That's big. And I know as second chair leaders, it's easy to look at somebody else on social media, and it's easy to look at somebody else's preaching or their website or whatever avenue you decide to look at. And you write the story that you think they're living. But I've been fortunate in the last couple of years to sit in the room with some second chair leaders from what we would consider large churches in the country, and to hear them talk. Their story is so similar to ours. Their story is so similar to all of us second chair leaders. They've got their place. They've got their lane. They're trying to run it. They're trying to honor their pastor. And they're looking for ways to make the organization better, to make their pastor's job easier. And sometimes it gets a little discouraging. It gets a little, you may not feel you get the recognition or whatever, and every situation is different. But waking up, knowing every day that, and I'm in a very detailed or, narrow focus these days. Like Jennifer said, we did everything in the early days, right. But I still wake up with two things. And I think this would help. I think second chair leaders need to wake up with this idea. One is, what can I do to make our organization or our church better today? What am I going to do today that makes it better? And then secondly, what can I do today that makes my pastor's job easier? And if I'll just kind
Very
of filter
good.
my day through those things, all the nonsense that comes at me, some of it just kind of falls off naturally because that's the focus that I have.
Very good. And I'm going to take a quick minute to remind everybody listening to this today, if you've made it this far, we have an entire website through Leading Second, or part of our website dedicated to content and handouts and notes that are created off of every episode. And what Matt just said belongs on your notes. Like if you woke up every day and asked yourself those two questions, you'd every day bring your relationship with your pastor to the forefront. So that'd be worth a stop and a pause and considering right there. Pastor Jonathan, I want to go to you though, because Matt's been talking about empowerment. And so let's hear from the first chair now, because we can talk about empowerment all day long, but this is your baby. I mean, you planted this church, you and your family sacrificed for this church. You carry a weight that none of us carry for the church. And we recognize that today. We honor that today. So talk to us from your seat, how empowerment feels. Because when you're going to empower, that's just gotta feel like, you're giving the keys of the Cadillac, to a kid. Do they even know how to drive this? Like how does that feel to you as a pastor?
Oh, I love it. Let me say first that again, this question that we're even talking about today, why didn't you leave? This actually came from me. Okay, this question is not from a second chair to a second chair. I'm the one who asked this question, and I was able to sit in a room with a large church whom I love and respect with his leaders a few years ago. And as soon as he got up and walked away, the senior pastor, I had all of the second chair leaders sitting there, and I said, hey guys, tell me, why have y'all stayed? They'd all been there 9, 10, 11 years.
So awesome.
Because I want to know, as a senior leader, I want to know what keeps that second chair fulfilled and alive and happy and healthy. So I love this whole conversation. And we did this last week at a senior pastors thing that I hosted for senior pastors. We asked this question so that senior pastors could hear the answer. Because I think the second chair, well, first of all, I think we all know it's mission critical. Any successful church, just look around the country, the 3 or 4 biggest churches in the country, there was a second chair leader, either 1 or 4 or 5 that have been with that pastor from day one.
That's right.
And I tend to keep Matt and Jen and the others that I have with me until I'm ready to go. They can do whatever they want to when I retire, but
we're going with you. We're going with you.
And we got many years ahead of us. Ahead of us. Empowerment. I see empowerment. It has been a journey for sure. I in some ways I probably naturally empower because I don't like getting in the weeds with stuff. There's a lot of stuff. I don't like monotonous work. I am a very detailed person about specific things, but I don't want to be in the details as it relates to so many of the systems that it takes and the structure even that it takes to run a church. So I've naturally empowered a lot of people. In fact, I feel like I ask them all the time. They could attest to this. Am I empowering you too much? I don't think I am, but do y'all think I'm empowering you too much? Like I will literally ask that question. Do you actually want my help more? Would you rather me help you with direction more? And I think that they know that they can come to me if they ever would like, my involvement and to collaborate on something. But in general, I love to just let them go. One reason is because I've come to understand the power of empowerment, the power of empowerment. I've heard it said that my organization's potential is inextricably connected to my willingness to empower. And so there's great power when I am willing to empower. And we are a developing church. We have a developing church culture. And we've worked very hard on that. And there is no development without empowerment. It doesn't exist without empowerment. And you can't just say that you're empowering someone. They have to feel empowered. You can't just say that I trust you. They actually have to feel trusted.
That's right.
Meaning as Matt said a moment ago, they have to feel like they can fail. They have to feel like I can ask for permission, or I can apologize. And they have to feel that. That's what empowerment feels like. I can fail, and I can come in and say, I messed up, and it's okay. They have to feel like they can be trusted.
Yeah, I honestly feel like that permission, what Matt said earlier, that permission to ask forgiveness is really important. Because I think we all get the permission side of it. We all understand, how that feels. But when you need to ask for forgiveness and you don't feel like you can, or you feel like it's going to be detrimental, I think what you start to add up over time is, I don't want to risk anything. And you really start to get protective as a second chair leader. You don't really want to step out, because I don't want to be in that position. I guess that feels like freedom to me. Maybe it's just because I'm a feeler, and my background, my particular brokenness would be like in shame and all that, but that would hold me back or set me free based on how, I felt in those moments.
So there is no innovation. So the second chair leader is not willing. If they're not willing to risk, then there will be no innovation. So the organization will stall, because innovation requires failure. It is part of innovation. Failure is part of it.
Innovation requires failure. Someone needs to hear that right now. Innovation 100%. Requires failure.
So second chair leaders and, those all the way down filtering through the organization, they have to have a safety net to fail. They have to, and they have to know that. And again, we can say that, but they do have to feel that, have to feel it. And there's certain areas that I struggle to empower. Generally, it's production related or worship related. It's stuff that kind of my background is in. And in a lot of cases, my issue was that I actually did know more about it than the people that I'm empowering. These guys know, if I don't know more about it than they do, I don't pretend. That's why they're here. But that's the difficult part, is empowering, where you are most passionate.
So good. So well said. I'm going to go back to Matt and Jennifer, and I want to ask you this question. What has your pastor done for you that has helped you thrive and go the distance? So we've already talked empowerment, but is there anything else that's really helped the two of you stay in the game over the years?
Yes, absolutely. I will say, like we said in the beginning, there were different hats and different seats that I sat in all along the way. And let me just say, when we came here to start the church with Pastor Jonathan and Alicia, I saw myself as a volunteer at NorthRock Church, and I was all in 100%. But I did not realize that I had any sort of gift that would be useful to this church in a staff role. I did not know that. I didn't even know to think that. And so Pastor Jonathan and Pastor Alicia saw potential in me that I didn't know was there, or didn't even know to mine for, because I didn't know it was a need. And Pastor Jonathan saw that, and he mined that in Matt and I all along the way. Now, Matt already had, a lot there, but I did not. And so Pastor Jonathan would just kind of, if I had an idea, he would say, go for it, run with it. And so he's done a lot. Lots of times people say, how do I find somebody like you in my church? And the truth of the matter is, there is a great second chair in every church, but the pastor has to be willing to develop. There is some assembly required. Not everybody, they're not going to show up knowing exactly what to do or how to do it. There's nobody.
There's no Amazon. There's no Amazon Prime for a second chair leader. They arrive in 2 days,
right.
Which I think is what we think, or what I've seen leaders think.
Right. And so Pastor Jonathan and Pastor Alicia literally have just developed and coached all along the way. They've empowered, but they've developed and coached when I messed up, when I didn't make the right decision, or when I was scared to go forward. And I have lots of great ideas, but I'm an Enneagram 1, so I want a perfect plan before I get started. And Pastor Jonathan has to say, just start. Go with what you have. You'll figure it out along the way. Just go, just start. And so that's one of the things. I will also say that Pastor Jonathan and Alicia, they affirm me publicly and privately. And for second chair leaders, the only person for true second chair leaders, so this would be executive pastors or campus pastors,
right?
The only person affirming them is the lead pastor. That's the only place that they're getting affirmation. So if their lead pastor is not affirming them, there is no affirmation. And over time, they will quit. They will move on. Even if they don't leave, they will quiet quit because what's the point? Nothing I do matters. And so I have been privileged to work for leaders who publicly affirm me, but also privately and tell me when I'm doing a good job. And so while I'm being coached on the things I need to improve on, I'm also being affirmed on the things I'm doing well on. And so I think that that's super important when you're trying to keep your staff thriving and healthy and strong. Make sure that you are affirming those seats. Also, I get lots of FaceTime with Pastor Jonathan. And sometimes when I'm talking to other second chair leaders, I'm hearing that it's spotty. How much FaceTime do you get with your pastor? It's spotty.
Very spotty.
Really not much. And I have to say, he is super intentional about getting FaceTime about every 4 weeks because he's checking to see how I am, because he knows if Matt and I are not okay, then NorthRock's not going to be okay eventually. And so he's doing a temperature check. And it's also an opportunity for me to ask him questions and make sure that I am staying aligned with the vision that God gave him. And I'm working on the things that are important to him. And my priorities are aligning with his priorities. So those are just a few things.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah, you can almost just take Jennifer's answer, and that's why we stayed, obviously empowered, encouraged, pushed. That was one of the things for me is, just pushing, investing, coaching is a big part of our organization. So, having leadership coaches in our lives, not the same one, but a big part of it for me is, and I want to piggyback off of what Pastor Jonathan said a while ago. If he doesn't know anything about something, that's why you're here. But he is so stinking honest about it. And there's something that is just pure and engaging about that kind of honesty. And so it makes me feel more purposeful. Now, I'm an Enneagram 2, so it doesn't take much for me to feel purposeful when someone needs help. I can fill that tank pretty quick. But it gives much more purpose because he's so honest about, hey, I'm not sure what we need to do here. And that invites me into the conversation. But over the last couple of years, I think what has strengthened so much is he's taught me about himself, and he led me to love the vision of what's going on and what God's placed in him, and not to try to be like him, but to let me run in my lane and be me. But some of the most powerful things, and I'll kind of use and pick on the Enneagram for a second, but as an Enneagram 8. There's things that I've learned that Pastor Jonathan's an Enneagram 8. I'm an Enneagram 2. So there's things that I've learned about him that have strengthened and deepened our relationship. Because early on, if you know anything about Enneagram, 8s are passionate. So they have no idea they're yelling. They're a little bit dramatic, and they're passionate, and they're getting the point across. But I'm sitting on the other side going, dear God, why is he so mad at me? Like, my stomach's upset and hurting now. I'm a nervous wreck. I'm shaking on the couch. I curl in the fetal position. Like, what did I do to upset him? And he's like, I'm not mad. I'm like, you weren't. So anyway, and there's a lot of funny stories I can tell, but again, that's an extreme, but learning, it's helped me learn how to communicate. It's helped him learn how to communicate with me. And we've built something there that is helping me go the distance because I know where he stands. I know where he's at. I know where he's at with me. and just the open, honest conversations we've been able to have been tremendous.
Very good. Very good. I have one more question on this topic for you guys, for Matt and Jennifer, and that's this. I feel like part of our covert mission at Leading Second is to help second chair leaders cultivate their calling. And what I mean by that is I feel like calling is a big deal. I feel like knowing that you are called to a ministry or to a pastor, to me, that helps anchor you in the toughest of times. I've often returned to my calling. When I've wanted to look for the exit ramp, or I've wanted to, even just respond out of frustration or whatever, I often will go back to purpose and calling. And I feel like, if we're honest, some get into ministry or in positions simply because the opportunity was there, not necessarily because they were called to do it. And so I just think calling is a subject I'm passionate about. And there's probably no greater joy I have than having a conversation with a second chair leader about their calling. Let's cultivate that, so that can anchor you. So I'm wondering if you all can just give a little bit more language and a little bit more voice to how your calling toward NorthRock felt to you, or maybe you use the word assignment, your assignment to NorthRock. Like talk to us about how it felt. What were you thinking? What was going through your head? Because I feel like if that can come alive in a leader, it holds us in when a lot of things are trying to uproot us in those moments. Does that make sense to you guys?
My thought on that is, and I've used the phrase before, and I stole it from a second chair leader, that God calls a man to a city, but he calls a team to the man. And we can go through scripture and we can find that precedent as well, multiple places. But calling and assignment is the best word, because like Jennifer said earlier today, God didn't wake us up in the middle of the night and say, go to San Antonio. I don't have, and Pastor Jonathan has an incredible, we call it the rooftop story for NorthRock of what captivated his heart and what God did there and the calling to start the church. But I was captivated by his vision. And so as a second chair leader, I am loyal to Pastor Jonathan and the vision, and I love the church. I'm not loyal to the church and just love Pastor Jonathan. And there's a difference there, because the winds will blow and things will sway and people will come and go. But God called this man to this city for this time. And I'm a small piece to be able to play a part of what God is doing here. And it's the best thing that's ever happened in my life. And it doesn't matter who comes and who goes. But when I see my leaders succeed, I get to jump up and down and I get to rejoice and I get to high five. And when I see my leader having a bad day, I get to walk up and put an arm around or send a text and said, hey, I prayed for you this morning, whatever that looks like. So the assignment for me is very much, again, I could use a lot of examples here from scripture, but just God planted in us, in me. Back to my two questions. What can I do today for my pastor? What can I do today to move vision forward so that we can reach more people with the gospel that are lost and hurting and disconnected and need Jesus? That's what I'm called to do. I'm not, that's the big picture for me.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah. I'll say, my role here at NorthRock, my mandate to me, or my calling, is so clear, because I know that I am called to be a second chair. I've never, ever wondered if I was actually supposed to be sitting in a first chair, ever. I've always known I was a second chair leader. And so it's freedom in the sense that my job is to execute his vision. It's to execute the vision that God gave him. Not only that, but in the seat that I sit in, my seat is nowhere near as weighty or as heavy as his chair. And nowhere along the way am I to think that God has called me to something harder than he called my pastor to. And so sometimes sitting in the second chair, it feels like we're doing all the work. And I think that sometimes when people think about calling within ministry, they never think about calling to the second chair. And that's one of the reasons why your leading second ministry is so incredible, is because it's given validation to the second chair. But I fear that so many people have their calling tied to their next step, or the first, or when I get to the first chair, or I have to work these steps until I actually get to sit in the first chair. And a few years ago, we had one of the Spurs assistant coaches come in, and he talked about a time that he had been the assistant coach for the Orlando Magic in Orlando, Florida. And during the season, they fired their head coach. And he talked about how when you look at the seats on the court between the assistant coach's chair and the head coach's chair, we're only talking about a matter of inches. But when he moved from one chair to the other, the weight difference between the two chairs was unlike anything he had ever experienced.
Wow.
And he said, no matter how hard it is to sit in the second chair, it is nothing compared to what it feels like to actually sit in the first chair. And so my calling is to the second chair and to Pastor Jonathan and Alicia, because their calling is so incredibly heavy that how honoring is it that I get to even sit beside them and lift their arms and help them carry that weight. And so as you're thinking about your calling and what you've been called to, I would say if God has called you to a church, to a man, to a woman in that church, then go all in for whatever that is and stop looking for what's next. Just go all in 100% on whatever God has called you to do. Get planted, get rooted in that church. And just like the story of the prophet in 1 Kings, if God changes his assignment, it will be very, very clear.
Yes.
He will tell you that your assignment has changed. God has not changed the assignment for Matt and I. We are assigned to Pastor Jonathan and Alicia, and it's an honor to serve them.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well said. Guys, this has been fun today. I really enjoyed this conversation. I know you well. We talk often, and yet you've built my faith again today that there's other leaders out there that think this way. And I know what can happen in an organization when health flows in the second chair. So thank you guys so much. Pastor Jonathan, I'm going to give you the final word today. And if a second chair leader is listening right now, like 40 minutes into a podcast, they needed this conversation today. So like I always figure the person still around at the end is who this conversation was for. So will you take a minute and will you just encourage a second chair leader listening right now, like the one who maybe feels like they're in a season of discouragement, the one who just like talk to them on behalf of their pastor, like how could they just really stand faithful for their pastor in this season?
Well, we understand that we wholeheartedly know that you have a heavy weight as well. Clearly, our weight is heavy. But we'll never take the mountain without you. We know that. And so thank you for being loyal. Thank you for being loyal in public, meaning that whenever you're out in the foyer or out having coffee and someone questions us, thank you for standing with us and defending us, even if you don't even know why we make certain decisions or why we did what that person was mad about. Thank you for being loyal in public, because that gives you crazy leverage in private. You're welcome to come and talk to us about it in private, but thank you for being loyal in public. Thank you for solving problems. Thank you so much for clearing the path. We've pointed to the mountain, and thank you for solving the problems. And again, my favorite problems are the problems I never even know about. In the moment, I never even know about them. Maybe after the fact, you come around and tell us, hey, this happened, but I solved it. Those are my favorite kinds of problems. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for loving us. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for loving the church. And it's a team effort, 100%. And I do want to encourage you to stay in the game. I want to encourage you that, some people think calling is connected to a specific chair, but there are so many different second chairs. Matt and Jennifer have both sat in so many different chairs over the 13-year life of our church. Matt's been the youth pastor, then
like four times.
I don't even know what all you've done, Matt. You've done 4 times and been the youth pastor again. Jennifer has ran every aspect, every area of the church at different times, and they've never fussed or complained whenever they've had to change chairs. And I know that can be a challenge. You're wearing one hat, and now it's time to wear another hat. There have been seasons where we've all wore about 6 or 7 hats at the same time. And so we understand the weight that comes with that. And I just want to love you today. And I want you to feel that. And want to say thank you from all senior pastors everywhere. If you haven't got affirmation recently, I want to affirm you today. Thank you.
Yes. Beautiful. Well said. I love you guys. Thanks so much for being on here today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon.
To find the episode guide, visit our website, leadingsecond.com/podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram @leadingsecond and join us on the Leading Second Collective on Facebook.